Welcome back to Unabashed You, Sarah. It's always a pleasure to have you.
Thank you, Rechelle. It's always a pleasure to be on. I was excited when you asked me.
Oh, yay, yay. Okay, let's jump right into getting to know you better. If you could try at any job for a day, what would it be?
So this time I went with a journalist.
Yes,
Um,
listener, I'm not sure what happened. I gave Sarah some of the same questions I've given her before. It's kind of hard when people come on multiple times. Like, what question did I give them? Okay, a journalist. And what kind of a journalist would you want to be?
like, like magazine articles or something like that. I really I've been doing kind of my own interviews with people that I know, just asking them different questions about their life and like about 20 questions. So then we'll do this little interview process and then I go and type up like a faux magazine article. It's not really in a magazine article. It's not anything I share publicly. I just give it to them. And I really enjoy that. So I think I would enjoy doing that with, celebrities or famous people or influential people. So
Okay, cool.
I think it'd be worth.
Yeah, sure. It's fun to to answer some of these questions, and you never know. You never know what could become of it. All right,
Yeah.
a book that made a big impression on you, either as a kid or in more recent years.
So the book that I would say is The Shack.
Mm,
I love The Shack. And that is by William Paul Young. I had to make sure I had his name right, but that's a book that I go to like when people have questions about like Christianity or just God in general. Even my daughter was having some questions about it, and I was like, "You should read The Shack." And then it's nice because there's also a movie, so it's like if you don't want to read the book, you can watch the movie. But of course, the book is better. Always, the book is better. Um, but yeah, I love The Shack. So,
oh, that is a good one. That is a really good one. Okay, now, do you wear a fragrance?
not anything really specific. I'm a, Bath and Body Works girl. I've got a couple different perfumes, but I don't have like one specific one that I wear all the time.
Right, right. I ran across that question. I was like, oh, that's kind of fun. That's kind of fun.
Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that. All right, something on your bucket list.
Going to New York City. And I say
Ooh.
that because I want to go, I want to go at least one time. But as far as vacations, that's not what I think of when I think of vacation, just because, it's big city, it's a lot of people, a lot of traffic, that type of thing. So it's not really relaxing for me. So it wouldn't be a relaxing vacation, but it's definitely, something I want to do at least once.
Right. And what is it you want to, what draws you there? What is it you want to see or experience while you're there?
Um, let's see. I don't know, a lot of stuff. I'd like to see the World Trade Memorial. Um, I don't know. Oh, Times Square. You got to go to
Okay.
Times
Yeah.
Square.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Just kind of do all the touristy stuff, I guess.
Yeah. Okay. I didn't know if there was something in particular that drew you there or so yeah, I was curious. Okay, now an author you admire. Who's an author you admire?
So I kind of have a couple of them that
Sure.
I like. Catherine Center and Kristen Hanna. And I feel like their writing is kind of similar. Um, but I just like them. For one, they usually have strong female characters. Um, they talk about I don't know, they explore some of the dynamic relationships of women, like mother and daughter, that type of thing, how it's not always perfect, it can get messy and relationships can be strained, but I don't know, they um just explore the beauty in that, I think, especially Kristen Hanna. She's more the um women relationships, and then Catherine Center is more the strong female leads, you know,
Me.
like I guess when life events that can be like catastrophic and then how they overcome that. Oh, sorry.
No, no, no. I don't even know what happened, but
Oh,
whatever
the
it was.
dog,
Oh no,
the
no,
dog
he's
barking. Yeah.
fine. He's fine.
Okay.
Okay, that last thing you said was how how Kristen or Catherine Sonor explores. Gosh, I'm sorry, I missed that. Explores the
Um, so Catherine Center, she explores like I don't know. There's this one book, it's called How to Walk Away. And I really like that book. It deals with a
ah,
girl that has had a tragic accident that, puts her in a rehab center for a couple weeks, like life changing, very young girl. And then she's dealing with these things that she thought she probably would never experience until she was much older. And it just kind of, just the, looking on the bright side of things instead of letting something like that take you down a, you know, depression, and which it easily could. It's kind of like, yes, this happened, but what are you going to do about it type
yeah,
thing.
okay. So very hopeful through the difficulty.
Yeah, and I've read a couple, well, maybe three or four of her books, and it's always different characters, but there's still that theme of hope and overcoming these things that just like kind of hit them out of the blue, but still, they do go through their rabbit hole where they're getting sad and, thinking that whatever has happened is going to overcome them, but then they're able to overcome it. And they always have happy endings too. Like I like books that they make you sad for a while, but then they end with a happy ending. I like
That's
that.
nice. And yeah, that keeps that hope alive. Oh,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's excellent. Okay, we are in Thinking Through My Fingers, a writer series, and you are one of the writers that first came to mind when I thought about this.
Oh,
Tell
cool.
me why you write.
So I've always said that I write to make sense of what I'm feeling or to make sense of what I'm thinking. You probably can tell from this interview that I'm not the best at like public speaking, but when it comes to writing, I can sit down and write and I can tell you, okay, this is how I feel, this is why I feel, this is what I'm going to do about it, that type of thing. So I think that's the main reason I write. And then I would also say stress relief, self expression, and then stress relief, because I'm kind of getting into, my first book was nonfiction and I'm getting into fiction now. So that's kind of fun because it's like you can make up people, and they have their own problems and issues. So you can um, disappear into that for a while and get away from your own things.
Oh, good. So tell me, so it sounds like you're working on something right now. So fiction, can you tell us just a little bit about it?
Yes. So it is. So when I wrote my book, which was nonfiction, I kind of got to a point where I was like, I wish this would have been fiction, because you get into the legal ramifications of, talking about other people, and are they going to try and come after you because you're talking about them, all those things you have to do to protect yourself. And I'm like, this would have been much easier if it was fiction. And so I kind of got the idea from that. So I pull from personal experiences, but it's also like some of the stuff never happened to me, so it's about a couple of different women who are friends at first, and then they go through life. They end up, um, one of the girls dates the other girl's cousin, and then the cousin is not the greatest guy in the world. So the book kind of travels through their relationship and how it changes, as the one main character is trying to convince her friend, that she shouldn't be with the cousin. It's kind of, I mean, I haven't really worked on saying what it's about, as you can tell.
No, 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 no. You're doing great, Sarah.
Okay.
Already you're selling yourself very short because I personally have read your book, Less Fear, More Fire, and it's fantastic. About breaking the chains of generational, abuse within the family. And and you've been on the show. This is your third time
Yes.
and you've been on the
Yes.
show. So you're,
I think it's the fourth time.
oh my gosh, maybe it is the
I
fourth time.
know.
Oh my gosh.
I know, right?
So you're more than just fine at public speaking. You're expressing yourself very well. And I have the gist of what the book is about, and I'm excited that you are working on a new project. And that was, that is one of the questions. And let's just go right there. You're so after Less Fear, More Fire, which I am totally plugging because I've read it, I can attest. So you probably maybe took a little break from writing, or I know you write
Hmm.
poetry, and I've read some of that online. And so this next project is fiction. It's the one you're working on about the two women. Has there been anything else in between?
No, nothing in between. It was kind of just, trying to promote Less Fear, More Fire. And then I got to a point where I was like, okay, I think I'm ready to take a step back from promoting so much and then work on another project. Because that's the big thing they tell you, one book is, you can have one book, somebody can love it, but then that's the end of it. That you got one book that they read and then that's it. So then, and I've had people say, when's your next book coming out? So that's encouraging. So then it's like, you got to get back out there and put another book out. And it's kind of exciting too, because going from nonfiction to fiction, there's challenges with both, but I think fiction's easier and it's a little funner. Like I said, you get to escape from your life and go type up, and it's true. Like, people say they get so connected to these fictional characters, and you do. Like, when I haven't wrote for a while, I'll be like, well, they're just kind of sitting there stagnant. I need to get them to the next part of what they're doing. Or I'll hear a song on the radio and I'm like, oh, so and so would love that song. So
Oh, how fun. Oh, that's
yeah.
really, oh, I hadn't thought of that in terms of fiction. I, my writing is blog and all, but so
Yeah.
more nonfiction. That's very interesting.
Yeah. So
Okay.
it's kind of
When do you have a target of when you'd like to, or you're just like, no, when it's done, it's done?
when it's done, it's done. With the last book, it was, I definitely had deadlines and stuff that I was trying to meet. So some of it was, I don't know, kind of rushed and maybe not as fun. So now I'm just kind of taking my time. Um, when it's out, it's out. With me working full time, it's just kind of, some days I don't work on it at all. Sometimes I'll work on it a lot. But that kind of takes the pressure off too. It's more fun, more of a hobby,
Right,
and not just, something that I have to get done.
right. Well, and that was going to be my next question is what is your process meaning? Is there a certain time of day when the mood strikes you? You write on legal pads, you write on your laptop, you've got to have coffee with you. I mean, do you have any kind of things that you do?
I would say the only ritual I have is with this book and the last book, I started in a journal. Like I wrote in a journal and filled up a journal. Excuse me. And then once that journal was full, then I started writing on the computer or laptop.
Oh,
And I'm
okay.
like, this must be my thing. Like writing it down, pen to paper gets me started.
Oh, I like that. And it's interesting to hear how other people, how that works for them, people, the process. Okay, so then you go from the filled up journal to the computer and then you start putting it together more.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, very good. Let's see. What have you learned about yourself through writing?
About myself, I would say, I think I've learned where writing fits in my life. Um, because like I said, sometimes you're rushing to meet these deadlines, or I will say, like with my first book, and I love this for myself, but it totally didn't happen. Like I had all these grand ideas of, this book is gonna like sell hundreds of millions of copies, or, then I'm going to, be able to speak at all these engagements, and talk to different women who have had several various similar experiences. And yeah, that didn't really pan out too well. But I mean, I don't want to shortchange. I have had some extremely supportive people, and when you think about the world of self-published authors, self-publishing is great because it allows you to have that goal of, I'm going to write a book, and you can actually bring that into reality. Whereas traditional publishing, sometimes people, you have to get an agent, you have to get a publishing
Mhm.
house, and sometimes people, their dream dies just because maybe they get discouraged, or they get tired of trying. But with self-publishing, it's much easier to make that dream a reality.
Right.
um so, but you also have to be realistic too, and that's kind of what I'm realizing, is that the right now the market is flooded with self-published authors. And in my book, like, I encourage people to write, so it's like, it's not a bad thing that people are writing. It's just, you have to understand going into that, like, yeah, self-publishing is easy, but guess what? Self-publishing is easy. Everyone's doing it. And not necessarily easy. It's just, easier than maybe
Right,
traditional publishing.
right,
So
right. So with this second project, do you have, will it also be self-published, you think?
I think so. I was kind of tossing around traditional publishing, but I'm like, I don't even know if I want to go that route or not. I
Right.
may just do self-publishing, and I think that's what I've learned, is, that I'm okay with that. Like, I'm going to write it, I'm going to put it out there, and whatever happens happens. And sometimes with being a self-published author, you have to dedicate so much time to going to, like, book fairs and author events and things like that, and those are fine. Like, I don't mind going to a couple a year, but I can't commit to, like, 6 or 7 a year. For
Right.
one, I don't want to give up my weekends all the time. um, and then just, sometimes those book fairs can be kind of discouraging too, because you could sit there all day and not sell one copy. And I've learned to have fun with those. Like, I'll meet new authors and things like that. So it's still fun. And I do sell a few books. So, in the grand scheme of things, I mean, I really can't complain, because there are some people that, really struggle to sell their books. Um, so I think that's where I'm kind of happy with everything. Like, I'm not fighting against myself. The whole social media, that's one thing. Social media will have us believing that, we're not good enough because we don't have all these likes, or we don't have all these followers. And you have to fight against that and be okay. I like writing, but it's not, or I love writing, I guess I should say, but it's not my career. I don't know if it'll ever be my career, but it can always be, a hobby and a passion, and that will always be there. And I don't have to force it, trying to force it to be a career. I mean, sometimes, the best job, when you're made to do it, sometimes it's not as fun. So, right now writing is fun for me. So that's kind of where I learned, is that where it fits into my life.
Yeah, I like that. What advice would you give to somebody who wants to write?
Um, Kind of what I said, just, being aware. I would do research on self pub and traditional pub. Um, the differences between the two. There's also a hybrid publishing out there as well. Um, ask as many people as you can. Um, Sometimes I know I've come across authors that are self-published, and they're stingy with their information. So sometimes you might have to go to someone else. I think just because they feel like things haven't been necessarily easy for them, so they don't really want to make it easy for someone else. So, but, like, I'm an open book. If someone wants to ask me, I don't mind telling them my process, and it is a long process. um, and you just have to be aware, going into it. It is absolutely possible. Like I said, self-publishing is a great way to make that dream of publishing a book reality. And then also, like what I had to do, being aware of where writing fits in your life. Are you wanting to write this book or multiple books because you want to have an income, like a secondary income or maybe a primary income one day? Or are you just doing this for fun? Are you doing it just for family? Because there's different routes. Like if you just are trying to publish something that you want to have a small reach, you don't need to go with a traditional publisher or even a hybrid publisher. It may be better just to do self pub, which is going to be less expensive. Um, so, kind of what your goal is with writing, I would say, is the main thing that everyone needs to kind of sit down and determine what they want to do with writing a book or writing a blog or anything really.
Right. That's good advice. That's good advice. And then what do you want readers to take away after reading your work?
So, with Less Fear, More Fire, the biggest thing I want people to take away is that everything is not black and white. I think that's like when I think of a passage that I would like to share about the book, that's a big passage that really resonates with me because, especially in today's society, you run into people who they may have a different background than someone else, and then they kind of pass judgment. Let's just say for domestic violence, for an example, they'll pass judgment and say, I can't understand why that woman would let her husband hit on her. I would never be in that situation. I would never do that, never accept that. And it's like, it's not black and white, it's
Right.
not, for one, you haven't experienced the same things you've experienced, so you really can't say what you would do in that situation. And then also, everyone's upbringing is different. Some people have like, strong families with a father that taught them how a man should respect them. He respected their mother, that type of thing. And then other children were raised where families where it was the exact opposite. And a lot of our personality and our character comes from our childhood. We carry those things with us. So, and and there's other issues too, abortion, immigration, all kinds of things. Some people just think that things are so black and white, and they're not. They're really not. And that's with Less Fear, More Fire. Yes, it was a memoir, but it was also, I wanted to be an advocate, especially for domestic violence, just because, you hear that so much. Oh, I would never do that, or I would never let a man treat me like
Right.
that.
Right.
And, I just tried to talk about that in the book, how well, maybe this could happen. Maybe this woman was raised this way, you don't really know. So
Right.
I think, we need to really have an emphasis on having more compassion in this country and more empathy. Um, so I hope my book spoke to people with that. I also talk about manipulators, what manipulation looks like, because some people are more vulnerable to manipulation. I'm more vulnerable to manipulators, even at my age now, even when I can sit there and say, okay, this is manipulation, but when it's in person, when it's
Yeah.
sometimes it's harder to point those things out. So I think that's the biggest thing that I want people to take away is just kind of be able to accept someone else's perspective and realize that everything's not always black and white.
Very good. That's excellent advice. And yes, don't we wish more people did that, live that? Where can
Mm-hmm.
people find you, Sarah? Where do you want to be found?
So I'm on Instagram at Less Fear, More Fire. Um, I have a website, sarahharbutwrites.com. My book is on Amazon. Um, let's see. Facebook, you can find me on Facebook too. I don't do a whole lot. Um, we've talked about this before, how that
Yeah.
the social media can be overwhelming. So I've kind of taken a step back from that, but you could definitely find me on there and find links to my work there.
Okay. Sounds good. Is there anything else you didn't get to say that you wanted to say?
Um, no, I don't think so. Um, I say give me a little bit and I'll have a better description for my current work. I got to work that out.
No,
Um,
I think you explained it well. Especially, I don't know where you are in the process, and so, you gave us the gist of it. We don't want too much information, right? You just
yeah,
want a little bit of a teaser, and yeah. So I'm looking forward to, when you do complete it and sharing that, and yeah. So Sarah, always a pleasure to have you on the show. I'm so happy for you in the sense of, knowing that about yourself, that you write to express yourself, you write to relieve stress, and that, you don't apologize for that. And that is
mhm,
great. And you consider yourself a writer. And I think so often we, feel like if we don't, oh, I'm not a writer, or
right.
I'm not this or I'm not that. Well, if you like to do it, then yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Because I'll run across people out in the world and they're like, "Oh, you wrote a book. I heard you wrote a book." And I kind of like, I still laugh, like, "Oh, yeah." It's almost like, I don't know, not embarrassing, but, at the same time, you don't want to be like, "Yeah, I wrote a book." Um, but yeah, it's like,
Uh-oh, Sarah just froze, everybody.
I'm a writer, I'm out there. Name shot, yes, I'm a writer. So,
Yeah, that's right. You are a
uh
writer,
oh.
Sarah. Yeah, you froze and then you unfroze. So let's call it
Okay.
here, and that way
Yeah.
we'll save any potential technological glitches.
Okay.
So
Sounds good.
thanks, Sarah. I really appreciate you.
Thank you, Rechelle.